Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Samuel Parry. I'm from a company called Nova Financial. We're a property investment advisory business. And today I'm going to be discussing with you property versus shares, so a slightly different take on probably what most of the focus has been on today. But generally, we're going to be focusing on property talk. Just a quick disclaimer, we are an FCA regulated company, so I do have to let you know that everything that I discuss today is general in advice. You should not act upon it. It's not personal advice. If you are looking to invest, we can provide you with personal advice, but obviously nothing I say today is related specifically to yourselves. Housekeeping. Okay, so property versus shares, a bit of an old age question. We get asked an awful lot, should I be investing in property? Should I be investing in shares? What is the right investment for me? I'm not going to be able to answer that, obviously, today in a lot of detail, but I'll briefly touch on some of the sort of key points, some of the benefits and some of the pitfalls of each, essentially. So I'll run you through who Nova Financial is, who we are, what we do, what we advise on. We'll look at some of the historical returns when we're looking at property and shares. To gear or not to gear, so one of the sort of key features with property is the ability to better leverage. So we'll discuss through the benefits and pitfalls of that. Reinvesting in liquidity, diversification, and then lastly, I've been told we're not allowed any questions, but if you do have any questions, come and have a chat to us at the stand afterwards. Who are we and what do we do? So we're a privately owned independent property advisory business. So we specialize in sourcing investments from the market based upon our clients' requirements. So that's specific properties. There's an awful lot of research and due diligence that goes into that. So making sure we're investing in the right areas, the right properties for your situation. We are also an FCA regulated mortgage advisory company as well. So that allows us to advise on the finance side of things. So that is obviously quite key when you're looking at investing in property. We act as an independent broker there, so we can go to the entire market and source the most suitable products. We are also tax specialists as well, so we can advise you on how to structure everything from a tax perspective and make sure you're not paying any more tax than you should be paying, and that is something that's become a little bit more important recently given the changes that have happened in the marketplace. So that's generally what we do. It's our service. With regards to our qualifications, so we have in-house financial advisors, in-house mortgage advisors, tax specialists, and the way we essentially provide that advice to our clients is we sit down and have an introductory meeting, get a good understanding of your situation, and then we go away and put together a recommendation based upon that. And it's around about a 100-page document that we put together for each individual client, and it goes into a lot of detail on all of the areas that are relevant when we're looking at property. Our experience as well, so our advisory team have well over 100 years of experience between them. I'll run you through a little bit later who's involved in the advisory team, but this is essentially where the expertise and knowledge lies and where the advice is generated from. The other benefit to that as well is it does provide us with a very strong network within the industry, strong relationships essentially, and the main benefit there is that allows our clients to have access to the best of what's out there, which is obviously key. So what makes us different? I'd say probably the main thing that makes us different from most other property companies in the market is we are independent. So we don't have a book or a list of properties. And that allows us to objectively go out and evaluate the entire market and source what is most suitable to you. Whereas most property companies that you will deal with, generally, they have a list of 100 or 200 properties that they're trying to sell. And it is very much a sales approach. So, property versus shares, is the answer simple? Obviously, it's not simple. It never is simple, but we'll start off by having a look at the historic returns, comparing the different asset classes. So this is quite an interesting report that Wrigglesworth produced in 2013. It was called Buy-to-Let Comes of Age. The reason it was called that was the year that buy-to-let mortgages were 18 years old. So they sort of did a review of that. So it looks at the cumulative total returns for the main UK asset classes between 1996 and 2013. So starting off with 75% leveraged property. So essentially that's a 25% deposit put down, and then you're leveraging the rest. So you're taking finance to complete on the purchase. And it essentially looks at what your returns would have been if you invested £1,000 at the beginning of 1996. So 75% leveraged buy-to-let has returned 16.3% per annum on average. Cash bought buy-to-let, or cash bought residential property, has produced 9.7% per annum. Commercial property, 7.9% per annum. The FTSE Share All Index has returned on average 6.8% per annum. Gilt 6.5%, and cash 4%. So some pretty solid returns there. So what is right for you? Obviously, that depends on your individual situation. But you know, if we're looking at investing with cash, generally the returns will be pretty similar. And you know, generally we'd be looking at recommending a balance of both equities and property. But one of the main benefits with property is that ability to leverage. And if we're looking at a long-term investment period, so say 5 years or longer, generally we find that property is the best vehicle for achieving that sort of financial freedom. The main reason for that is even when we are leveraging, we're able to achieve high yields. So currently you can borrow at around about 2 to 3%, more like the 2% if you're buying in your personal name. If you're buying in a company, you're probably looking at more like 3.5%. So that's the cost of finance, but you can very comfortably get 5, 6, or 7% plus yields. So from a cash flow perspective, it makes a lot of sense. But the main benefit there is obviously, say for example, if you're investing 50,000 of cash, if you're looking at equities, you can buy £50,000 worth of equities, but with property that's leveraged, you'll be buying £200,000 worth of property, and then obviously you're getting your returns on that total amount. So you're able to get high yields, but also utilizing that leverage to build up a portfolio over time. So what I mean by that is as the property grows in value, you're able to remortgage, which releases cash, and that's actually tax-free. And you can then use that as a deposit to buy another property, essentially. So a lot of our clients generally will be remortgaging every sort of 2, 3, or 4 years or so. That will release a deposit they can then use to buy another property, and then that exponentially will increase over time. You can leverage with shares. You can get what's called a margin loan, but generally rates will be around about 6%. Loan to value is a max of 65%. So it's a lot more costly, and it's also higher risk than with property as well, because the lenders have the ability to introduce what's called a margin call or a margin loan call. So if the value of your share portfolio falls, say by 30% in an economic downturn, you might actually get a margin call, which means you have to repay back the loan, which generally will mean that you either have to put in more cash at that stage in a falling market, or you have to sell your shares at that stage, which is probably going to be at the lowest point and not going to be a good time to sell your shares. So you can leverage, but it doesn't work as effectively. And so switching back to the share side of things, one thing that shares definitely have a benefit over property with is on the diversification side of things. It is very easy when we're investing in shares to put some funds into a unit trust, for example, and get an awful lot of diversification very easily. Property tends to be quite an expensive asset to buy. And therefore, the only real way we can get diversification is looking at other areas. So diversification from a geographic perspective, but also different types of properties or different types of tenants as well would be another option. So it's definitely more difficult to diversify. And liquidity. Liquidity is a big one. So obviously with shares, you can sell your shares tomorrow if you needed to. Property generally is quite expensive to buy, so you have stamp duty, agency fees. There's quite a few costs that are involved when you're entering the market, but also when you're exiting the market as well. So generally it only works if we are looking at that sort of medium to longer term time frame. But that being said, there is a slight benefit to that as well, in that if you wake up in the morning and you see on the news that the Far East are having economic difficulties or some kind of negative news like that, people will often go out and be concerned and sell their shares. Generally, people won't get up, read the news, and then panic and sell their properties because of the high entry fees and exit fees. So, although that on the liquidity side of things is a bit of a downside, what that does bring is a lot of stability to the marketplace. And we've seen when we've had economic downturns, generally the property market will tend to do quite a bit better than the shares market. In 2008, for example, 30% drop in the value of companies, but from a property perspective, we're only looking around about sort of 16%. So generally, it's that can be a little bit of a positive thing over the long term. So this is quite an interesting study. So a big part of what we do at Nova is putting together in-depth financial plans for our clients and working out the best way to achieve your goals over the long term, really. So they asked Harvard MBA students, have you set clear written goals for your future and made plans to accomplish them? 3% had goals and they were written down. 13% had goals but they were not written down. And the remaining 84% had no specific goals at all. They then returned and interviewed all of those students 10 years later on, and they found that the 3% who had goals that were written down were earning 10 times as much as the other 90% combined, which is pretty staggering find there. But I suppose what that really shows to us is there is a huge amount of benefit of actually thinking about the future, working out what where you'd like to be in a certain time frame, and putting together a written plan to get there, which may not go perfectly to plan, but it definitely helps to have that in place. So this is a promotion that we're running at the show today. So we're offering a free initial consultation in our central London office. So we're based halfway between Bank and Moorgate. And that's an opportunity for individuals to come in, meet with Nova, get a good understanding of what we do as a business and the different areas that we can advise on, but also for us to get a good understanding of your situation. And as part of that promotion, we're offering to generate a free property recommendation. So that'll be an in-depth analysis on your situation and your goals and where you're trying to get to, and then a particular plan to be put in place to enable you to get there. Using property as the main vehicle to achieve those goals. There's a range of other incentives that we're also offering at the show at the bottom there as well. So this is our management team. I mentioned this earlier. This is essentially where the advice from Nova Financial stems from. So Paul Mahoney is our managing director. He's got 15 years of experience in the industry. He's a qualified financial advisor. He's also a mortgage advisor. He's got his own property-focused TV program. He was also the general manager of Spring Financial Group, which is a publicly listed company in Australia that has a very similar business model to Nova Financial. That was what he did previous to Nova. David Alberto is our chairman. So David previously founded Avanta Managed Offices, which is one of the largest serviced office businesses based in London. He actually recently sold that to Regis. So he's bought and sold billions of pounds worth of property over his years. So that really helps to bring in that network I mentioned earlier, strong relationships within the marketplace. Stefan Vadamutu is our operations director, also got 15 years of experience. Again, a financial advisor. He's got a lot of experience within the equities market as well. So that is something that we do also advise on. Pensions and equities are part of what we do. And I suppose the reasons why we advise on all of those different things, the tax structuring, mortgage advice, estate planning, inheritance tax structuring, all of those things are very important when you're considering investing in property. And the benefit that provides to our clients is that they have everything under one roof. Often you'll be dealing with estate agents, mortgage advisors, accountants, etc. And they will be able to advise you from a tax perspective or a mortgage perspective, or whatever it may be, but they're not necessarily considering how that might impact the other side of your finances as well. So it allows us to look at everything from quite a holistic approach. Ian is the head of our advisory team. She's got over 30 years of experience. Previous to Nova Financial, Ian was the CEO of Vail Williams, which is a large real estate consultancy business and surveying firm. Julian is our financial director. So he's a qualified accountant. He's run various different property businesses over his years. He also ran a large Qatari-based wealth fund that were heavily invested in UK property. So Julian's very handy on the numbers side of things. We do a lot of cash flow analysis and growth forecasting and risk assessments. He's very handy there. And lastly, we have Giles, who's also FCA authorised. He's also got a lot of experience in the property industry and run various different property businesses as well. So that's the management team, and this will be where the advice stems from. And we're not allowed to do any questions, but we have got seminar feedback forms which if you are interested in coming in for a meeting and taking up the offer with regards to the free property recommendation, if you just want to pop over to the stand at the end of the day, have a chat with one of our team members, and we can get you booked in. Thanks very much.